We'll keep you posted as we get the developments as they come to us here. As we say, this is a fast-moving major development in this 51-day-old siege. As we say, the FBI told us this morning, told the public, that negotiations were over, that they weren't working, and that offensive action had to be taken. What they did was they took armored vehicles and punctured holes, pierced holes in several of the parts of the compound and introduced tear gas. The FBI has stressed time and again non-lethal doses of tear gas to entice the cultists to surrender. There's been no direct communication apparently with David Koresh since that. In the meantime, as we say, the FBI held a news conference before this fire broke out, held a news conference approximately an hour ago. Federal authorities, as we told you, took the offensive, and Bob Ricks, the special FBI agent in charge there, had this in part to say.
Today's actions is not an indication that our patience has run out. The action was taken today was, we believe, the next logical step in a series of actions to bring this episode to a conclusion.
At that time, Ricks said that the strategy today was to continue introducing tear gas into the compound, that he felt by doing that, the gas masks, which many of the cultists have, would eventually wear down, become ineffective, and the hope then is that David Koresh and his cult followers, some 95 of them, would surrender. Ricks said nothing about demolishing the compound, let alone putting fire to it, and there is no indication, we want to stress, there's no indication how this fire started. Now, some have suggested that the introducing of some of the tear gas canisters might have sparked the fire. That's been known to happen, but there's no indication whatsoever at this point whether this fire started from within the compound by the cult members or by the FBI, either intentionally or accidentally. FBI agent Ricks stressed time and again that the federal government has gone out of its way to avoid harm coming to the cult members and, of course, to their own people. The FBI was fired on this morning. We want to tell you more about the fire. It began moments after an armored vehicle rammed one of the buildings. There appeared to be no immediate effort to put the fire out. Now, the flames broke out about 6 hours after FBI agents in their armored vehicles began ripping holes in the walls of the compound where the Branch Davidian leader, David Koresh, and his followers have been barricaded for now 51 days. Agents were met by heavy gunfire, but no injuries reported. According to FBI spokesman Bob Ricks, we're no longer negotiating. He said at a news briefing about a half hour before the fire began, "We're saying, come out with your hands up. This matter is over," quote, unquote. These words again being spoken by FBI agent Bob Ricks, one of the federal commanders at the site near Waco, Texas, this before the flames broke out. Ricks showed during the news conference aerial photograph of the compound and said that, yes, indeed, there were underground crawl spaces or tunnels and that the tear gas would permeate all of these, that they do have these large Chinook helicopters you see there now, one hovering overhead, ready to take out all, if necessary, all of the cult members if they required medical treatment or otherwise needed quick evacuation. Obviously, there's more than one of those large choppers in the area, but you see one airborne right now. A number of buses also and ambulances were called in early this morning or overnight. Asked this morning whether Koresh's latest apparent promise that he would give up after trying to decipher the biblical seals, Ricks said that apparently Koresh had not even tried or finished translating the first of those mystical seals, and that apparently that was one of the last straws as far as the FBI was concerned, that to their way of thinking, this was another Koresh stalling tactic. We mentioned moments ago the aerial shot that the FBI used. You can see it there, and this entire, from what we can tell from our live pictures, this entire compound now, and the buildings are joined together in most cases, is entirely enveloped in flames. Those vehicles which you saw up near the front there were pulled back overnight by the federal authorities. The immediate area around the compound was cleared of all vehicles and other obstructions in preparation for what was this tear gas assault this morning, an assault which has grown into a full-fledged fire. And again, the origin of the fire, just how it got started, is not known, but as we reported to you just moments ago, the first flames broke out right after the introduction of more tear gas. Paul Venable is standing by near the Waco, Texas compound. Paul, please come in with the latest for us.
So we assume there, as a matter of fact, they said they had medical personnel available to treat every single one of the people within the compound. That would be 96 people. So we would assume that they are prepared as well to treat anyone who is injured in this fire. And I would guess, again, this is a lot of supposition, and I apologize for that, but I would guess at this point that that's what the helicopters are here for. The Chinook helicopters are here to provide medical evacuation and medical assistance to the people within the compound. Any word? Go ahead, Mario.
That report live from near Waco there. Now, once again, Bob Ricks, the FBI agent and the chief spokesman, said this morning that the whole plan for today and beyond today, if necessary, was to continue with the doses of tear gas. But we're told now that with the fire burning out of control, obviously, that fire trucks are en route now to the compound. And ambulances and other emergency vehicles were already positioned near the compound before the flames broke out. In fact, before the initial tear gassing broke out. Some 30 emergency vehicles were apparently situated around or sited around the area. Ricks said that, of course, their chief concern was to try to avert a mass suicide on the part of the cultists, and he said the best way, to the FBI's thinking, was to go with the tear gas strategy. That's it for now. We will keep you posted as developments warrant. And now back to our regular programming. For the second week in a row, Indecent Proposal is doing very well at the box office. The movie stars Robert Redford and Demi Moore. It was far ahead of the pack, taking in an estimated $15.3 million. The Sandlot was a distant second with $5.5 million. Wesley Snipes' new action thriller Boiling Point was third. Now, Wesley Snipes' last action flick, Passenger 57, is now out on home video, and Sarah Voorhees tells us about it and other thrillers new on home video.
You know, Charlie, I'm a little surprised at you. Didn't your father ever teach you never send a boy to do a man's job?
In Passenger 57, Wesley Snipes is an airline security agent sitting in seat number 57 of a jet airliner who foils a hijacking by one of the snarliest villains ever to threaten a group of innocent civilians. Passenger 57 is a thrilling action adventure you can't help but love, but you'll hate yourself in the morning. If you thought Basic Instinct was sexy and explicit in the theaters or even on your VCRs, you ain't seen nothing yet. Paul Verhoeven's director's cut has just been released with 42 seconds more of the controversial footage the ratings board insisted on cutting for an R rating. Rent it if you care.
You ever engage in any sadomasochistic activity?
Exactly what did you have in mind, Mr. Corelli?
The Public Eye is a film noir thriller that should have been made in the 40s when film noir was in flower. Joe Pesci is a tabloid photographer who longs to be an artist.
In your line of work, I'm known as the photographer to the stars. One shot, come on. Real fast, nobody even know. Come on, let me immortalize you. Back up a little. Thanks, kid.
Rapid Fire is a poignant release because its star, Brandon Lee, was killed this month while making a new movie. Rapid Fire was Lee's first big picture in America. It's about a young martial artist who avenges his father's death, and it was clear from this picture that he had a bright career ahead of him.
I think I've had enough police protection, Detective Withers.
Brandon Lee will be missed by his family and friends and by millions of his fans. I'm Sarah Voorhees reporting.
And that is the news for this half hour. I'm Stan Turner, and thank you for joining us.
Do you want to hear everything? Do you want to live in this exciting world? Or do you want to turn back
If you have trouble hearing in noisy situations, the exciting Miracle Ear Clarifier may be your answer. The Clarifier features a special filter that automatically reduces background noise.
You see, you miss a lot out of your family, and that's a sad thing to go through life, missing what they have to say. And now I don't have that problem. I've conquered that, and I'm very proud of it. I really am.
If you or someone you know thinks they may be suffering from hearing loss, call Miracle Ear at this number and receive helpful information.
The Clarifier, I couldn't live without it. It is terrific. I don't know how other people feel, but for me, it's just, I think it's just perfect.
Call today. Learn about all the good news from Miracle Ear.
On day 51, a fiery conclusion to the cult standoff near Waco, Texas. A fire broke out at the compound of cult leader David Koresh this morning after the FBI used armored vehicles to smash holes into the stronghold and inject non-lethal gas to force an end to that 51-day-old standoff. Flames and heavy black smoke could be seen jumping from the second floor of the wood frame structure where Koresh and his more than 90 followers have been holed up since a siege with federal agents on February 28th. There were believed to be 17 children inside the wood frame Mount Carmel building. Reporters could see one man jump from the roof of the compound, the fire appearing to be well out of control and enveloping the roof of the compound, and of course, as you can see in these live pictures, having spread now throughout the compound where Koresh and his followers were still holding out. There appears to be no firefighting equipment on the scene yet. We're told some is on the way when the flames broke out in the second floor and then spread along the roof. This morning, FBI Special Agent Bob Ricks spoke to reporters and had this in part to say.
Today's actions is not an indication that our patience has run out. The action was taken today was, we believe, the next logical step in a series of actions to bring this episode to a conclusion.
Now, Ricks delivered those words before the fire broke out in the Branch Davidian cult compound. Ricks said that the strategy, as planned by the FBI and other federal authorities for today and for however long it would take to bring an end to the siege, was to introduce a volley after volley of tear gas into all the buildings. They had pierced several of them with cranes on front of armored vehicles that pierced the walls and sprayed in non-lethal doses of tear gas. But suddenly, about roughly a half hour ago, fire broke out. It seemed to be near a window at the corner of one of the buildings in the compound and quickly spread. And just from what we've been able to discern from the pictures you're seeing here now, the fire spread very quickly, and it could be there were several ignition points. That begs the bigger question, how did the fire start and by whom? Well, we have no answers to that right now. Nobody really knows for sure who's able or in a position to tell us. Either it could have been set off by one of the tear gas canisters, igniting a wood or other combustible materials, or perhaps by the cult members themselves. There's just no way of knowing at this point. What we do know is what you see, and that is that the Branch Davidian compound, the Mount Carmel compound near Waco, is fully involved in flames. At least 2 firefighting companies are on the way. Reports of injuries are non-existent at this point. We simply don't know, nor is anyone in a position right now to know. Apparently this morning, the cult members threw their only phone link away. They severed the connection with federal authorities after a discussion this morning before all this broke out. Apparently what instigated the cult members throwing the phone away or disconnecting it was their anger over the FBI's announcement to them that negotiations were over and that aggressive action would be taken. Aggressive action in the form, as we found out initially, of the tear gas injections into the building. As we said, the FBI had obviously a plan for some time to go with this strategy because overnight, if not before, they had pulled away vehicles and other obstructions from the perimeter of the compound in order to clear the path for what turned out to be armored vehicles, some with booms or cranes fixed to their fronts. that were able to inject the tear gas into various buildings. One of them was the watchtower, the prominent square tower, which I think you're looking at now. I say I think because it's hard to discern exactly what that is, because most of these structures or parts of them have been burned away now, have been gutted. Paul, we have a report from a correspondent at the scene. We'll go to that now.
Again, still no fire engines, no sirens, except for 3 vehicles coming in here about 5 minutes ago with flashing lights. Certainly no one hospital is going to be able to handle the numbers of potential injury victims here. I can't imagine certainly that the Waco could handle them all, so I'm sure Dallas will be preparing. I wish we had better news to report, Dale and Julia, but we see another helicopter landing, no more people coming out.
That was Brett Shipp reporting live from near Waco, Texas. As Brett reported there, he may not be able to see fire trucks at the scene, but we are told they are on the way, at least 2 companies of them. Also, the FBI announced this morning before all this broke out that, by the way, you can see moving into position there one of the armored vehicles, the type of which, if not the one, that breached the walls this morning and put in the first. There we can see this footage you're looking at now from earlier today, and that's an American flag flying off the boom or the crane, the derrick of the machine there that is used, the armored vehicle. The federal authorities inside those vehicles were taking gunfire at this point. The FBI says up to 100 rounds, but there they are, piercing the wall, and apparently a hose of some kind, and they're spraying in the tear gas. As we've said, that was to be the strategy throughout today until the effectiveness of the cultists' gas masks finally wore out and became ineffective. Back to live pictures now. You can see again that American flag flying and another flag flying off the armored vehicles of the federal agents. We can see several of them now moving in. Obviously, this has now become a firefighting work as much as anything. This effort in progress right now, of course, will involve evacuation of any people who have been hurt. Again, we have no reports of injuries, but Special Agent Ricks has said this morning that emergency vehicles had been put on standby, that Waco hospitals had been put on alert, and that helicopters, large Chinook, large troop carriers were standing by. As to the prospect of the cultists committing suicide in the course of all this, Bob Ricks of the FBI had this to say.
And pressure that's taking place. Is suicide a possibility? We thought that this was probably the best way to prevent that type of suicide pact from taking place. That is, caused confusion inside the compound. Also, we thought that their instincts, the motherly instincts, would take place and that they would want their children out of that environment. It appears they don't care that much about their children, which is unfortunate.
FBI agent Bob Ricks earlier this morning. Back to live pictures now of the cult compound, the Camp Davidian compound, being reduced to ashes right now, still fully involved in fire in the forefront there. You can see some of the federal vehicles moving in and out, obviously looking for people, trying to, I'm sure, effect any rescues if possible. We just have seen no sight of anybody from the cult, save for one man who was seen jumping from a rooftop after the flames broke out. Let's go live if we can to Waco now. We are live. Brett Shipp is the man reporting there. We'll join him in progress.
2, 3 fire engines and more vehicles to come after that.
It is difficult for Brett Shipp and other correspondents to know exactly what's going on because they are stationed about 2 miles away from the compound itself. The federal authorities moved the press back several weeks ago, well back, and so through the use of telephoto lenses, we've been able to see what's going on there. But again, for the correspondents, they can only tell you what you can see right there, and at least 2 fire trucks heading into the compound right now. It would seem that the FBI did not count on fire being a part of this today because apparently there were no fire trucks nearby. These perhaps were called in all the way from Waco, which is some 12 miles to the west of the compound. Fire continues to burn unchecked. We have no reports for you as to any injuries, any casualties on either side. We do know that before the flames broke out this morning, that according to the FBI, even though their people were fired on inside those armored vehicles, those tanks and other vehicles, that no one was hurt. And the FBI went out of its way to say they did not return fire. Upwards of 100 rounds, they say, were fired at them by cult members. We want to tell you again that the estimates range to the mid-90s as to the number of cult members inside the compound. 17 of that 95 or 96 said to be children. 37 cult members have left the compound, have been allowed to leave over the 51 days of this siege. The initial incident that set all this off was the federal assault on the compound. This was back in February 28th, and in that assault, 4 federal agents were killed. These were mostly from, if not all, from the Tobacco Firearms and Tobacco. And we're not sure of the exact number, even to this day, of cult members who were killed and wounded. Various figures put those at 4 or 6 killed, and the number of wounded has been just a matter of sheer speculation. There is David Koresh, of course, a tape made sometime earlier. He is the cult leader. He has called himself Jesus, the Savior. This is now Brett Schiff. We're going to go back to Brett Schiff now, standing by some little distance from the compound. Brett?
Certainly, they've tried to cover all the bases here. They've tried to be so careful not to get anybody inside hurt. They tried very carefully to gauge what kind of tear gas they could use so they wouldn't damage the lungs of the children. They've waited 51 days under very trying circumstances with one broken promise after another. Authorities ran out of patience. They got the okay from Washington to step up the pressure. And we don't know what started that fire. We really don't. And for the first time, we see an ambulance coming out. DPS coming out. Well, no, we have seen a couple of vehicles come out at high rates of speed. So far, we have not seen any ambulances come out. We have not seen any fire trucks obviously come out. We just saw them begin to go in, and I lost track. Were we looking at about 7 or 8 fire engines, an additional 2 ambulances, I believe.
As we see the compound continue to burn, much of it already been reduced to ashes, much of it gutted already. One of the many questions unanswered is, are the rescue people, are the firefighters and the others going in there, are they to come under fire from the cult members? We can see in various shots here, these are all live pictures we're bringing you, we can see there the crane mounted on what appears to be a tank, one of the federal vehicles that partook in the initial assault this morning of tear gas. And again, they're obviously going to be patrolling there to try and safeguard rescue efforts as well as try to rescue the cult members themselves. Again, we're going back now to Brett Schiff, who is situated on the outward compound or the outward perimeter of the compound. Well, we'll get back to Brett. As you can appreciate, this is a fast-moving, fast-developing situation near Waco. Day 51 of the cult standoff, and you can see that it is drawing to a fiery conclusion. Just exactly how the conclusion will play out, nobody knows at this point. Now, this is an aerial photograph taken in the recent, perhaps the last day or two, probably beyond 2 days ago, because there, as you can see, several vehicles in the foreground there. Those vehicles, including David Koresh's Camaro, which is apparently one of his prized possessions, were all removed carefully, the FBI was at pains to say this morning, because, of course, some of these vehicles are criminal evidence dating from the February 28th assault, because it was near the, you can see the tall structure there toward the right-hand part of the screen. That's where a lot of the gunfire came from, and near where the 4 of the agents were killed, gunned down. See more armored personnel vehicles moving in now. This is February 28th. These are scenes from the initial assault. This is 51 days ago when this all began. The FBI, other federal agencies were going in to served notice on the cult members, David Koresh in particular, that they were in violation of federal firearms regulations and provisions, and that they were going to seize the weapons and make some arrests. And that's what gave way to the shooting and the fatalities there on both sides. To this day, we have no accurate accounting of how many cultists were killed and wounded. Koresh has never been clear on that point. You can see much of some of the structures or parts of the compound, which apparently is all interconnected, has been being reduced to a burned out shell at this point. We've seen at least 2 fire trucks go in. And once again, we want to tell you that the federal authorities some time ago had situated emergency vehicles, including buses, to take out cult members and to airlift those who might be hurt or otherwise injured to be taken to the Waco hospitals. There you see on your screen photographs of the 4 ATF agents, the 4 federal agents who were killed in the initial assault on the Camp Davidian compound on February 28th. And again, over 51 days, this drama has played out and is built to a climax now. Paul Venable is standing by live near Waco. Paul Venable is trying to, as best he can, about 2 miles away, bring us what he is learning from federal agents around the perimeter, which is, as we say, 2 miles away from the compound proper. There's a Huey helicopter coming in over the Waco compound now. These, again, live pictures. In the foreground, again, these are the federal agents' armored vehicles, tanks, personnel carriers. We can see a fire truck there now moving into the actual fire area, seemingly itself enveloped in flames, although these are telephoto shots, and they are that accounts for the jumpiness of the picture. But these are remarkable pictures considering that these cameras are stationed some 2 miles away. Now, the latest episode in the FBI's efforts to negotiate an end to this centered on an element of the Bible in the book of Revelation. David Koresh said that before he came out, he wanted to translate or decipher the 7 seals of the book of Revelation. This is an effort that has eluded scholars for centuries, but Koresh said that he wanted to do this, and then he implied that at that point he would come out and that the siege would end. As to that aspect, FBI agent Ricks had this to say this morning.
The seals were supposedly almost done. The first seal has not been completed yet. Mr. Snyder said as of yesterday he has not even seen it, and he's responsible for editing it. They've also, through intelligence that we've gathered, they considered the meeting with the attorneys a fiasco. This is the intelligence that we've gathered, that it was strictly a stalling tactic, that the attorneys did unknowingly go along with that, but they had no intention of ever coming out. Yes, ma'am, follow up.
And now we have a report via the White House that the White House has been told by the Justice Department that the cult members themselves set fire to their compound. Once again, according to reports from the White House, is that the White House itself was informed by the Justice Department, we would assume through Attorney General Janet Reno, that cult members themselves put fire to their own compound. The fire broke out roughly an hour ago, perhaps a little bit less. Live pictures here, and standing by live, reporter Paul Venema. We'll get back to Paul in just a minute as he gathers what he can from the scene. But again, this report emanating from the White House is that the cult itself set fire to its compound after federal agents began injecting doses of tear gas at various points in the compound this morning. If in fact this is the case, then the cult has answered that call with this fire. It appears from what we've been able to see that, number one, the fire spread very quickly, and it appeared, and we say it appeared, this is only a very highly conditioned statement, qualified statement, is that there were several ignition points, that the fire did not seemingly start just in one place and spread, but it spread so fast and seemed to flare in several areas that that, as arson investigators often say, there were several ignition points, and that's only a supposition on our part now, but that's from what we could tell from the live pictures, what caused this fire to spread so quickly at all points of the compound and envelop virtually all of it. The big question, of course, the major question, the paramount question is, what about those people inside? Where are they? What condition are they in? Was there an attempt at a suicide pact? We have no answers whatsoever, no indication whatsoever what happened. As to the federal agents who are in there close, the rescue people, the firefighters, their safety, their condition, we can't tell you either. We're just too far away, and I think at a fair guess that the people controlling this operation, the law enforcement people, could not make an accounting of that right now either. There's just too much confusion. This a huge fire. If possible, I'd like to show you again the photograph, the aerial photograph of the compound as it looked just there. It is just a couple of days ago, where you see those vehicles in the foreground. This is an area which is, in a sense, still a crime scene. And those vehicles, many of them took bullet holes during the February 28th gunfight, during which 4 federal agents were killed and perhaps as many as 6 cult members were killed and many others wounded perhaps. We don't know that, but we do know that the federal agents went in there and towed out those vehicles, got them away, including Koresh's Camaro, and are holding those as evidence for whatever legal action will be taken sometime down the road. Back to live pictures. This is an understatement, but this is one fast-moving, massive fire, burning largely unchecked because it took some time for firefighters to reach the scene. There you see a Huey helicopter moving in. We can see a couple of personnel with their legs hanging out there, and they're apparently going to make a landing. Paul Venema, our correspondent near Waco, is standing by live. Paul?
It is completely burned to the ground. There's a few wisps of black smoke visible from our vantage point here 2 miles away, and that is all we can see. As far as what began this whole ordeal, as you mentioned, it's only speculation, aside from the fact that we understand people were seen starting that fire this morning. That certainly would be a possibility, and it certainly would be a fulfillment of what the authorities have said David Koresh has wanted all along, and that is a violent, spectacular end to this entire standoff. The FBI has told us all along, even before this fire began, that they were not using tear gas grenades. They were simply battering holes into the compound with giant battering rams attached to tanks and then pumping the tear gas into the compound. They were not lobbing grenades in. So we assume that given that, and that indeed one of the things that they've been speculating about is that a grenade may have sparked this blaze. Apparently that did not happen. But it's again, like so much at this point, only a matter of speculation, and it's probably going to be quite some time before we know exactly what happened, and it's going to be quite some time before we can sort out the casualties and what, as I said, what started this entire ordeal. In any event, the compound now has been reduced to just smoldering, charred rubble. There's a helicopter hovering nearby. The helicopters that we saw fly into the area earlier are still on standby. Nothing has left. We have seen no emergency vehicles leave this area. We've seen a total of 3 fire trucks, 3 large fire trucks, 2 small fire trucks, and a couple of Department of Public Safety vehicles entering toward the compound. Nothing has come back out our way here on this particular road. However, as I noted earlier, there are 3 roads that lead into the staging area that authorities have been using throughout this ordeal. So there could have been firefighting equipment coming from any one of those other directions into and out of the compound, preparing to do battle with a fire that appears to be, from where we are standing, all but out now. There's a helicopter, we assume for surveillance purposes only, still hovering over the compound itself. No helicopters have left, as no other emergency vehicles have left the scene. It's difficult to tell exactly what stage of this whole thing the fire is at this point, except from what we can see, and that is that there are no flames visible. At one point we could see flames leaping well into 100 feet in the air, bright orange flames that were clearly visible to us a full 2 miles away, as well as the thick black plumes of smoke, and indications just from our experience from observing fires in the past are that the fire simply got the upper hand and nobody ever got a real good chance at fighting it. It appears as though the compound itself just totally burned with very little resistance. Maria, you had a question?
Paul Venema reporting live to us from near Waco, Texas, near the compound. It's remarkable that within the space of an hour, the Camp Davidian compound has virtually been leveled, gutted by fire. We want to tell you once again that according to the White House, the White House was informed by the Justice Department that Camp Davidian cultists themselves torched their compound. Again, this fire having started approximately an hour ago, it burned unchecked, or has burned unchecked for virtually all of that time. You can see that federal armored vehicles have pulled up to and perhaps surrounded the area right now. We can see some jets of water being sprayed in by at least a couple of fire trucks at the scene. But again, the immediate concern is what is the condition of the 95 or so cult members in there, and of course the people going in there to try to rescue them or in some cases apprehend them. That question we cannot answer. We just don't know. There was a concern that of course there might be an attempt at mass suicide, all of the Jonestown suicides some years ago. Bob Ricks talked about this morning and said that although that was a possibility, the FBI and the other federal agents at the scene were doing everything possible to avert that, to bring this to a reasonably successful conclusion. Now, at this morning's briefing, Bob Ricks of the FBI was asked about the large Chinook helicopters that had been brought to the scene, and he had this response.
The question is, what is the purpose of the Chinooks? Again, that's part of our medical plan. We have a plan in effect that if in fact everyone was injured inside that compound, we had the capability to treat those people. So the Chinooks are there to ensure that if people need to be evacuated at a moment's notice, those helicopters are there to ensure that that will take place.
And as far as the
Bob Ricks from earlier this morning before this fire broke out at the Camp Davidian compound. Again, we're showing you live pictures of the smoldering ruins of the Camp Davidian compound under the leadership of David Koresh. No word on his fate. We do have a report that one of the 37 cult members who left the compound over the last several days claims that the FBI and not the cult itself started this fire. So there we have our first major conflicting report as to the source or the origin of the fire this morning. That's something that I'm sure will be talked about, debated, and altered and modified and changed throughout the day. But the White House has let it be known that according to its Justice Department, the cult itself started the fire, that the fire was not intentional or accidental on the part of the FBI or other federal agents involved there. Very little of the compound can be seen standing now. Perhaps something on the order of a silo still stands. We'll see in some of the live pictures. A couple of the telephone poles are still up. Power lines are still there. There's that silo-type structure still standing, but that seems to be about the only part of the compound. To give the, once again, the head count and what is thought to be the number of people in the compound, about 95, 17 of whom are said to be children under the age of 10. 37 cultists have left the compound, been allowed to leave over the last 51 days of this siege. And now we simply, nor does anyone, we would guess at this point, know how many casualties, if any, how many arrests, apprehensions, or evacuations have been made. We do know that Waco hospitals were alerted before the fire to be on standby to receive any injured. Paul Venema still standing by near Waco. Paul?
Various monitors, and we could see one of the tanks bashing away at a corner wall with the battering ram that they'd been using, apparently in preparation of introducing some more tear gas into the compound itself. Now that was in keeping with what authorities had told us they were going to be doing all day long. They said they were going to continue to apply pressure. They were going to continue all day to put gas into the compound. Shortly after we saw that is when we began to see the plumes of smoke starting to rise from the compound. Whether there was any connection, obviously, is only a matter of conjecture, only a matter of speculation at this point. We do know the authorities were being consistent with what they told us they were going to do, and that is to introduce the tear gas into the compound. Now, since then, we have had reports that authorities closer to the compound than we are, certainly,
To summarize once again, this day, day 51 of the siege of the the Camp Davidian cult, began with tear gas from the FBI, fire now having enveloped and apparently burning the compound to the ground. We'll have more right after this break.
You want to turn back.
If you have trouble hearing in noisy situations, the exciting Miracle Ear Clarifier may be your answer. The Clarifier features a special filter that automatically reduces background noise.
You see, you miss a lot out of your family, and that's a sad thing, to go through life missing what they have to say. And now I don't have that problem. I've conquered that. And I'm very proud of it. I really am.
If you or someone you know thinks they may be suffering from hearing loss, call Miracle Ear at this number and receive helpful information.
The Clarifier, I couldn't live without it. It is terrific. I don't know how other people feel, but for me, it's just, I think it's just perfect.
Call today. Learn about all the good news from Miracle Ear.
I'm Stan Turner reporting. On this day 51 of the cult standoff near Waco, Texas, a sudden and a fiery end to that standoff. We're going to take you live now to near Waco. This is what is left of the Camp Davidian compound near Waco. This fire a little over an hour old. This fire followed this morning's assault by federal agents using armored vehicles, cranes, and other items to pierce the walls and inject non-lethal doses of tear gas to try to force an end to this. They went out of their way to stress they were using non-lethal doses, that they were not giving up on negotiation, but that the use of tear gas, was the next logical step in trying to bring this to a conclusion. It was shortly after FBI agent Bob Ricks spoke with the news media and the American public this morning that fire broke out. It seemingly broke out in several points in the compound. The U.S. Justice Department has told the White House that its information is that the cult members themselves torched their compound, but one of the 37 cult members who left the compound over a space of days, over the past 51 days really, one of those people claims that the FBI started the fire this morning. We do know for sure that rescue vehicles are now at the scene. What we don't know is the fate of the 95 or so people who were inside the compound, 17 of them children under the age of 10. We do know that prior to the fire this morning, during the tear gas assault, that the federal authorities in those armored vehicles, and you can see some of them moving around now, were fired on. The FBI said they took more than 100 rounds from the cult members, but that the FBI did not return, or the other federal agents did not return the fire, that no shots were fired from their part. As you can see, very little remains of the profile, at least, of the compound now, all interconnected buildings. This is an elaborate system of buildings and crawl spaces and tunnels. There you can see what it looked like. And that cylindrical structure in the top of your screen in the center there is about all that seems to be standing at this point. That looks to be perhaps a metal silo of some kind. But that's about the only physical feature that remains, aside from some power poles. The large observation tower near where David Koresh, the leader of the cult, had his room, and where also apparently a lot of their ammunition and firearms were stored. That is gone, burned to the ground at this point. We do know that some fire trucks are on the compound land at this point, at the site. We have seen jets of water coming from their vehicles. There you see some ambulances which had been called in prior to this morning's initial assault with the tear gas. The authorities had all kinds of emergency vehicles standing by. Apparently, though, not fire trucks. Those had to be called in and were sometime getting to the site. They are there now, at least some of them are, and perhaps more on the way, but their use at this point is problematical because, as you can clearly see, it's a fire that's burned out of control and has just about eaten through all of the combustible parts of that large compound near Waco. Bob Ricks this morning was asked during his briefing, again we want to stress this happened before this fire broke out. Ricks, in announcing the tear gas assault, was asked, what about the possibility of the cult committing mass suicide? He had this to say.
Is suicide a possibility? We thought that this was probably the best way to prevent that type of suicide pact from taking place. That is, caused confusion inside the compound. Also, we thought that their instincts, the motherly instincts, would take place and that they would want their children out of that environment. It appears they don't care that much about their children, which is unfortunate. We have continued.
Now, earlier today, actually just before Bob Ricks gave that news conference, this is the scene as the federal authorities rolled up to the compound in their heavily armored vehicles, some of them tanks with cranes or derricks, and the American flag flying from them as they punctured the side of several of the compound buildings and through a hose-like apparatus injected non-lethal doses of tear gas. The FBI did say they know that many, if not most, if not all, of the cultists have gas masks, and that some of those would be effective perhaps over a span of 8 hours, but eventually, with the tear gas continuing to be pumped in, those gas masks would lose their effectiveness, and the hope was that the cultists would then come out and give up and end the 51-day siege. These, again, back to live pictures here. We can see some figures in the center of the picture, no way of telling just who they are. As you can appreciate, a great deal of confusion. We can only speculate that these are the law enforcement authorities who are going through the ground, or perhaps even some of the cult members themselves being led away. We just don't know. We can't give you a fix in any sense of the term right now as to the fate of those involved on either side of this long siege. To recap once again, the Camp Davidian cult compound near Waco has burned to the ground, a fire that started approximately an hour or so ago. The federal government, the White House, says that it has information that the cult itself started the fire and torched its own compound. At least one cult member who walked away some days ago claims that the FBI started it. But as the camera shot now pulls back, you can see that the once familiar skyline, the configuration of the compound, is now reduced to a burned-out shell, and only that metal-like silo remains as federal helicopters hover overhead and other rescue vehicles. There's a fire truck in the foreground, have been at the scene now for some time. This, the scene, as you see it live from near Waco, Texas, the Camp Davidian compound. We will be back with more in just a moment.
Do you have an idea for a new product or invention that you'd like to submit to companies? If so, there's information from Invention Submission Corporation to help get you started. ISC is America's largest invention service organization with over 50 offices nationwide. Call now for free information, which includes forms to assure confidentiality and record and date your invention, plus an informative brochure. Call for your free information now.
For your free information, call 1-800-243-6000. Call now.
Say who we are, and you get this. With your paid subscription to this, Popular Science, at a very special rate, $16.06 off the cover price, and this handsome tote free, if you grab the bargain now.
Call toll-free 1-800-544-6400. 12 issues are $13.94, and instant TV discount of 53% off the newsstand price. To save and claim your gift, call 1-800-544-6400. That's 1-800-544-6400.
It was 50 years ago today the Jewish fighters started their uprising against the Germans in the Warsaw Ghetto, and their memory is not forgotten. Polish President Lech Wałęsa, Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin, and Vice President Gore are all leading observances today. Today's ceremonies follow a weekend of mourning and remembrance. Lisa Engstrom reports.
For those too young to remember the Holocaust, and for those who will never forget it, it was a day to recall the heroic and doomed ghetto uprising. Only a few thousand Jews remain in Poland of the millions living here before the war. Many came from abroad.
States, and heavy snow is a possibility in Nebraska down through Kansas and much of northern Missouri and southern Iowa. That's for the daytime hours on Wednesday. Forecast highs show the cool air dipping well into the south once again. Arctic air with highs in the single digits and teens as far south as northern Iowa. 70s and 80s down the far south and southeast as South Florida basks in sunshine. Sunshine through the middle of the country. However, that storm system takes shape out over the central Rockies and will spread that snow and through the high plains. Here's a look at a few other cities around the country.
Defense Secretary Les Aspin is spending another night in the hospital for more tests. The 54-year-old was hospitalized Sunday after suffering from shortness of breath, which was linked to a heart condition. A Pentagon spokesman says the breathing problems were triggered by a typhoid inoculation and aggravated by a case of bronchitis.
They now believe that he had a lingering bout of bronchitis that he'd had for about a week prior to receiving the inoculations, and that played a part in his overall condition.
Doctors predict Aspin will fully recover. Hillary Rodham Clinton was on Capitol Hill Tuesday pushing for health care reform. The First Lady is looking for support from female members of the House. Mrs. Clinton met with the Congressional Caucus for Women's Issues. She discussed the inequity in research funding for women's diseases. Mrs. Clinton says her health care plan will be ready by the 100-day deadline set by the president. An apple a day to keep the doctor away? That may soon be the case. Texas scientists are working on putting vaccines in fruits and vegetables. Kelly Brostrom has more.
Imagine becoming immunized to hepatitis B simply by eating a piece of fruit. Well, scientists at the Albert B. Alkeck Institute of Biosciences and Technology are working to develop a vaccine for the disease that could be distributed through ordinary foods.
Very simply, we found a way to put genes into plants that cause that plant to produce a protein, and the protein has activity which will cause it to immunize people if the plant is eaten.
At this point, Arnson's research has proven the plant will produce a protein. Now he's testing it to see if it really acts like a vaccine. He began his work with tobacco plants for their easily manipulated genetic systems, but he adds lettuce, tomatoes, and bananas are now also a part of his study.
We have to deliver this technology to them in a form that they can use in their own country. And I think there's nothing simpler than planting a seed, growing up the plant, and harvesting it and distributing it.
And Arnson says if this procedure is successful, he may be able to adapt it for use on other diseases as well.
We chose this disease because it's been very well characterized, and the candidate vaccine that we're interested in is something that's been well studied and has already gone through other lines of commercial development in traditional means.
Arnson says he hopes to test his vaccine's success in humans within the next 5 years. From the Texas Agricultural Experiment Station, I'm Kelly Bostrom.
The American Medical Association is out with some numbers on the financial drain of one's lifestyle. The AMA says bad habits and violence cost nearly $43 billion in direct medical expenses every year. And related expenses, such as lost productivity, boost the total to more than $189 billion annually.
If you're getting bored with your hair, you should try Topsy Tail, the incredible hair fashion tool that creates exciting new hairstyles in seconds. It's so easy. If you can make a ponytail, you can topsy-tail. Simply place the topsy-tail in the center of the ponytail, thread hair through the loop, and pull for a beautiful new look. And with the same basic steps, you can create dozens of dazzling styles for every occasion in no time. It's all right here in the Glamour Guide. Topsy-tail works on any hair type. Kids love topsy-tail too. School time, playtime, anytime. It's even great for shoulder-length hair. Now for less than the cost of one visit to the hair salon, you can order Topsy-tail, complete with Glamour Guide for just $12.95. Order now and we'll also send you secrets to French braiding. Create a whole new look and a whole new you. Order Topsy-tail today.
Credit card users call toll-free 1-800-742-7800. Sorry, no CODs. That's 1-800-742-7800 or send $12.95 plus $3.50 shipping and handling to the address shown on your screen. Credit card users call now 1-800-742-7800.
Introducing Discover the Classics. This superb 3-volume collection.
Time for truth and good science to replace emotional videotape and unsupported allegations.
An estimated 10 million Americans now use cellular phones. In today's Consumer Corner, some tips on what to ask the doctor and a look at new insurance for newlyweds. Chuck Thorne reports.
Your wedding day. It's supposed to be perfect, but all too often, something beyond your control ruins your big day. Well, now you can get insurance to cover those unexpected mishaps. Wedding insurance covers non-refundable expenses such as broken or stolen gifts and absent photographers. However, the policy does not cover broken promises. A major piece of Americana is coming to an end. Sears announced Monday it's ending its mail-order catalog business, and that means no more catalogs. Sears began publishing its Wish Book in 1896, and if you have any old catalogs laying around, you may want to hang on to them. Antique book dealers predict old copies like these will become collector's items. Trials of the latest grocery store technology are over and the results are in. Consumers like the new ACMs or automatic checkout machines.
Please pick up the last item and scan it again.
The ACMs allow shoppers to ring up their own groceries. Most say the machines get them out of the store faster.
I thought it was very nice. You can get out of the lines very fast. It's kind of complicated at first. Some things you don't know. You have to push buttons for the vegetables and things like that, but it's real nice.
The ACMs will soon be installed in supermarkets around the country. The cost of health care is out of control. Doctors say one way you, the consumer, can help slow costs is by being informed. Doctors frequently suggest expensive lab tests, and it's up to you to determine if they're really necessary by asking 5 basic questions.
Why is the test being performed? Is it being performed in an accredited laboratory? When the result comes back, will you explain that result to me? If the result comes back, do you expect that it will require additional testing? And in general, is this going to be an expensive process or not an expensive process? Those are some of the key questions I think that patients need to ask their doctors.
Dr. Schwartz also suggests you ask your doctor if he or she has a financial stake in the lab. For the Consumer Corner, I'm Chuck Thorne.
And we'll be right back.
It's hard to believe what life would be like without pencils, telephones, computers, and even paper clips. And yet these everyday products were created by people much like you. If you have an idea, invention, or new product you'd like to submit to industry, Invention Submission Corporation has a free inventor's kit to help you get started. The kit contains a form for recording and dating your invention, an information brochure, and other materials of interest to inventors. Invention Submission Corporation is one of America's largest invention service companies. We can show you how your invention can be packaged and submitted to industry. So call ISC now for your free inventor's kit.
For your free inventor's kit, call toll-free 1-800-243-6000. That's 1-800-243-6000. Call now.
How about poor Fred Wilson? What a shame. So soon after retiring.
I hear his wife needed help with the funeral expenses.
Oh, that's ridiculous. He had Social Security.
When my brother died, his wife received a check from Social Security, all right, for $255. Funeral costs were more than $4,000. Fortunately, my brother bought some additional life insurance a few years before he retired. I'll bet that cost a pretty penny, huh? Not with Colonial Penn. Each unit costs just $6.95 a month.
Friends keep telling friends about whole life insurance from Colonial Penn Life Insurance Company. If you're over 50, you cannot be turned down. So call now.
Call toll-free 1-800-332-1900 for free information and receive this handy guide to Social Security absolutely free. That's 1-800-332-1900. Call now. 1-800-332-1900.
Hello, Colonial Penn?
Well, again, I'm Wally Langfellow with a look at sports for this half hour. The last time Monica Seles and Steffi Graf met on a tennis court, Graf had no trouble with the world's #1 player, cruising to a straight-set victory in last July's finals at Wimbledon. But on Friday, the surface was not grass, and the title was down under, where Seles has dominated the last 3 years. After dropping the first set, Seles bounces back in the second. Nice cross-court smash here. She wins the second 6-3. And on match point, Graf serving and Seles returning. That one's untouchable. She wins her third straight, Monica Seles does. The final scores 4-6, 6-3, and 6-2. Well, after further review, instant replay is a dead issue, according to NFL Commissioner Paul Tagliabue. Tagliabue, who gave his annual State of the Game address Friday, said that he doesn't expect instant replay to return. He also said the league will expand in '93 and should know where by the end of the year. Meanwhile, both the Bills and the Cowboys held their last official workouts Friday in preparation for Super Bowl 27. The Cowboys are listed as 6.5-point favorites, but the Bills say they're ready.
I think that the preparation has been very sharp, very focused. I think our players, I'm sure the Dallas players too, want to win the game very badly. I know our coaches do, and there isn't going to be one thing that distracts our football team. Nothing. Nothing.
On to the NBA, where it was a busy night Friday. The Celtics looking to stay above the 500 mark as they paid a visit to Shaquille O'Neal and company in Orlando. Let's go to the Arena. Pick it up late in the fourth, down by 2. The Celtics go to Reggie Lewis, and yes, he hits the shot. He had 28 on the night. We are tied at 99. We go to overtime in the extra period. Shaquille O'Neal fouls out of the game, and the Chief goes to work. Robert Parrish first with a nice little jump hook over Greg Kite. Then with the fade here for 2 more. Celtics win 116-105 in overtime, outscoring the Magic 17-6 in the extra period. Well, the Buffalo Sabres have been one of the NHL's best home teams this season, and Friday night the Rangers found out why as they paid a visit to the Odd. Rangers led at one point, this one 3-0, but watch the Sabres come back. First, Alexander Mogilny. That made it 3-2 in favor of New York in the second. Moments later, Mogilny to Bob Corkum. A shot in the goal for Corkum. That made it 3-3. Sabres win 6-4, their 8th straight win at home. Time now to roll through the Friday scoreboard.